Story number 1. It was supposed to be peaceful. Just the four of us and the sound of the waves. The beach was a hidden spot on the coast. A 2-mile hike through brush and tide-worn rock. No cell service. No lifeguards. No other footprints. We found it from an old post on a backpacking forum. Secluded, it said. Perfect for a quiet night. But there was one odd line at the bottom. Don't stare at the lights in the water after midnight. Don't let them see you. We assumed it was a joke. Part of the mystique. Ghost stories for adventurers. The first day was perfect. The sand was fine and pale, almost white. The sea stretched forever under a gray sky, and the wind whispered like it was carrying something old and tired. My girlfriend Mia was relaxed for the first time in weeks. Our friends Jonas and Kira made a bonfire from driftwood and dead seaweed. We grilled fish, passed a bottle of cheap whiskey, and watched the sun bleed into the horizon. That night, long after the fire died and our tents were zipped, I woke up to a strange sound. A high-pitched singing, far away but clear. It echoed over the waves like a siren cutting through fog. I unzipped the tent. The beach was bathed in silver light. No clouds. No moon. Just starlight so sharp it looked like glass in the sky. And then I saw them. Blue lights. Out past the surf, gently swaying in the water. About a dozen of them, bobbing like lanterns just beneath the surface. They were too steady for jellyfish, too bright for buoys. They pulsed, dim to bright, like they were breathing. I stared too long. Something cold wrapped around my ankle. I jumped back. There was nothing there, just wet sand. I woke the others. Jonas stepped out and saw the lights. He whistled, amused. That's sick. Maybe bioluminescence. Kira wasn't so sure. There's no reef out here, and they're too far out to swim to. Too deep. Mia was silent, staring. Then she whispered, "They're watching us." We laughed it off eventually and went back to sleep. The next day felt different. Heavy. The sun was out but felt weak. Birds didn't circle overhead like before. Crabs scuttled out of the sand and sat still, claws raised, like in defense. When we went swimming, something brushed against Kira's leg. Slimy and smooth. She screamed, said it felt like fingers. We left the water. That night, we agreed not to look for the lights. At midnight, the singing returned, softer now, almost inside our heads. Jonas didn't say a word. He just walked straight down to the water. We yelled for him. He didn't turn around. He walked into the surf, deeper and deeper, until only his shoulders were above water. Then we saw them, the blue lights surrounding him. One by one, they rose, glimmering in a circle around his body. He stood there, still as a statue. Then he was dragged down. No splash, no struggle, just gone. We sprinted to the spot. Only his footprints remained, ending at the tide line. No ripples, no bubbles, just the lights blinking slowly, then fading. We didn't sleep. At sunrise, we packed to leave. But the path was gone. Where the trail had been was just sand dunes and seagrass. No brush, no marker trees, nothing. We circled, climbed a ridge. Nothing but more empty coast in every direction. We were trapped. Kira broke first, started pacing the shoreline, muttering to herself. That night, we didn't make a fire. The singing started again. Louder. Mia held my hand so tight it bruised. Her nails dug into my skin. Kira stood and said, "He's calling me." Then she walked into the waves. I tried to stop her. She turned and screamed, "Don't touch me. He's beautiful." The blue lights returned. 5 of them now. They closed around her. She vanished beneath the surface, gently, like she was falling asleep in the sea. Mia and I cried, screamed, but no one heard. No one came. We didn't sleep. We just sat, staring out at the water, waiting for the lights to come again. They didn't, until Mia started humming. It was the same tune as the singing. She wouldn't look at me, wouldn't blink. She just hummed and walked down the sand. I begged her to stop, to look at me, to come back. But she just said, "They see you too now." Then she was gone, and I was alone. I tried everything. climbed dunes, built signal fires, waded into the tide and screamed for help. But the beach never changed. The trail never returned. I never saw another human being. Until now. Because tonight the lights are back. 12 of them. And they've come closer. I see shapes behind them now. Faces. Eyes. Smiling mouths. They've stopped pretending to hide beneath the water. And they're waiting on the shore. Their song is louder than ever. Inside my skull. Inside my lungs. I can't stop humming. I think I'll walk into the ocean now. Maybe I'll see Mia again. Maybe you'll read this and come looking. But if you do, don't look at the lights. Don't let them see you. And never listen to the song. Story number 2. We thought we found paradise. It was a hidden cove, off an old highway with no signs, no cell signal, no footprints. We followed a tip from a cryptic Reddit thread. Locals won't camp there, but the beach is beautiful. It was me, my brother Nathan, his girlfriend Bree, and our mutual friend Alex. We had been planning the trip for months. Off-grid, ocean breeze, stars overhead. It was perfect when we arrived. Gentle waves lapped against black sand. Cliffs wrapped around the beach like jagged arms. And there was a soft wind that sounded almost like a whisper. The sand was strange, dark, fine, and cool even in the sun. Nathan joked that it felt too soft, like flour or ashes. There were caves, too, dozens, carved into the cliffside like mouths frozen mid-scream. One had symbols scratched in the stone. Bree snapped photos and brushed it off as ancient graffiti. But Alex said the symbols made his skin crawl. That first night, we built a fire from driftwood and told ghost stories. Alex said the place felt wrong. Bree rolled her eyes. But when the tide came in, the waves sounded weird. Not crashing, not lapping, gasping, like the ocean was breathing. And then we saw the footprints. Hundreds of them. Small, barefoot, child-sized, walking up from the tide line toward our tents. No one had been there but us. We laughed nervously. Maybe animal prints? But they were perfectly shaped human feet. 5 toes, narrow heel, and they all stopped right outside our tents. Bree checked her phone. No signal. The time was 12 a.m. exactly. Then her phone died, even though it was fully charged. We didn't sleep much. The next morning, we found sand in our tents. Not just on the floor, in our clothes, our mouths, our ears. Alex swore he felt something pressing down on his chest all night. Bree said she dreamed of children laughing, then screaming. Nathan didn't say anything, but I noticed he was pale and quiet. We considered packing up, but Bree was determined to get content for her page. She hiked alone to the far side of the cliffs where the tide pools glowed faintly green. She didn't come back for an hour. Then we heard her scream. We ran and found her at the edge of one of the caves. On her knees, shaking, her mouth stuffed with sand. Nathan pulled it out, coughing with her. Her eyes were bloodshot. She said something dragged her, pulled her down from behind while she was looking at the tide pools. There were hands in the sand, she whispered. Tiny ones. That night no one slept. The fire wouldn't light. The wind screamed like a woman in mourning. And the footprints came back. But this time they circled our tents. And this time, there were handprints too. Small, wet, sinking into the black sand like something was crawling toward us. Then we heard the giggling. Children's giggles. Light, playful. So close. Nathan snapped. He shouted into the dark, through a lantern, and charged toward the caves. We ran after him, calling his name. We heard him yelling, cursing, echoing off stone. Then silence. Just the tide. Just the sand. He was gone. No screams. No struggle. Only his boots remained, standing upright at the entrance of the largest cave. As if he'd been lifted out of them. We dragged Bree back to camp. Alex wanted to leave immediately, but the cove had changed. The beach was longer. The cliffs were closer. Our footprints disappeared seconds after we made them. And the ocean was still. Dead still. No tide. No sound. Bree kept whispering about kids. They live under the beach, she said. They're hungry. They want to be remembered. She pointed at a mound near the fire pit. It hadn't been there before. Alex brushed it aside with his foot, and a face stared back. A child's skull. Mouth open. Eyes hollow. Buried just beneath the surface. We didn't wait. We left everything. Ran up the cliff trail. Hacked through bramble. Slashed our way through the woods. We didn't stop until we saw headlights on the old highway. When we finally got to town, we told a ranger. He looked pale when we described the cove. "You went to Wailing Hollow?" he asked. "That place was sealed in the 90s. Whole school bus of kids disappeared there in the 60s. No bodies ever found." We showed him the map. He shook his head. "That cove doesn't exist anymore. It collapsed after an earthquake 5 years ago. But we were just there. And Nathan is still missing. And Bree? She killed herself 2 months later. Left a note that just said, 'I hear them laughing again. They're under the floor.' Alex won't talk about it. Moved to Montana. Off-grid. No phone. Me? I still dream of sand in my lungs. And sometimes when I walk along beaches that shouldn't be haunted, I see tiny footprints forming behind me. In the dry sand. Where no one is walking. Story number 3. We arrived just before dusk. The drive had been long. The dirt roads unforgiving. And by the time our tires rolled to a stop at the base of the dunes, we were exhausted. Me, Jenna, Malik, and Tyler. For friends since college, reunited after years apart. The spot was called Redwater Beach, a small crescent cove on the far edge of the peninsula. Unlisted on maps. Unmarked. Rumored to be cursed. Tyler found it in an old explorer's book, Redwater, where the tides bleed. We thought it was poetic. The sand was rust-colored, deep and coarse. The water, though clear, shimmered red under the low sun. The air tasted like salt and iron. We set up camp near a collapsed lifeguard tower. Jenna lit citronella candles. Malik took photos. I walked to the edge of the water and dipped my fingers in. It was warm. That night, we lit a bonfire. We drank cheap whiskey and told stories. The flames danced in the wind, but there was no sound from the sea. No crashing, no waves. Just a low hum, like distant machinery buried in the ocean. Around midnight, the fog rolled in. Thick, heavy, red, like someone poured blood into smoke. It hugged the sand, crept over our sleeping bags, and reached toward the trees behind the dunes. We could only see each other's eyes through it. Jenna joked that it looked demonic. Then we heard the first scream. Came from the water. A sharp, gasping sound that cut through the silence like a blade. We all stood. Another scream. Then another. They weren't from the same voice. They weren't even human. They were wet, sloppy, like a drowning mouth forced to cry. We shined flashlights toward the water. And that's when we saw them. Figures. Dozens. Standing just offshore. Silhouetted in the red fog. Motionless. Not wading, not swimming, standing. In water that should have been chest deep. They didn't move. Didn't speak. Then, one by one, they began tilting their heads back. And from their mouths, that same choked scream burst out again. Over and over. A symphony of the drowned. We backed away. But the fog followed. It was warm. Sticky. Tyler turned to run. Straight toward the trees. But he stopped dead. There was someone standing in the tree line. Another figure. Not one from the sea. This one was dry. Its skin was cracked and white, like porcelain left in the sun. It raised one hand and pointed toward us. Then it vanished. We packed. Fast. No sleep. Just panic. But the car keys were gone. And so was the road. Where the path had been, there was only sand. And the beach was longer than before. Wider. Endless. We tried climbing the dune to get a signal. Jenna screamed when her hand sank into the hill. Like it was hollow. Like the sand was alive. When she pulled back, something grabbed her wrist. A hand. Gray, thin, covered in seaweed and shells. Its nails long and jagged. It let go when we yanked her free, but her skin bubbled where it had touched her. She started burning up. By morning, she was unconscious. Pale. Breathing shallow. Malik said we had to find help. He went alone, walking down the shoreline until he disappeared into the fog. We never saw him again. That night, Jenna woke up screaming. "There's something inside me," she cried. "It's crawling under my ribs." We held her down, crying, begging. Then she went quiet. Her eyes opened wide. She smiled and said, in a voice that was not her own, "The sea doesn't forget." She walked straight into the water. We chased her, called her name. She didn't stop. The red fog swallowed her whole. Tyler tried to follow. I stopped him, but the sea didn't. It rose fast, unnatural. A wave surged inland, not with water but with bodies. Arms, legs, hands, all made of sea muck and broken shells. They crawled like insects, hissing, dragging themselves over the sand. We ran, found the old lifeguard tower, climbed it, waited till sunrise. But the red fog didn't lift. The sun never rose. Just more crimson light. That was 4 days ago. Tyler's gone now. The tide took him last night. He thought he saw his sister in the water. She drowned 10 years ago. He followed her voice. I'm alone now. The fog speaks to me. Sometimes it laughs. Sometimes it weeps. And sometimes it whispers stories. About sailors who stole from gods. About children swallowed by waves. About sins buried in sand. I've written all of this on driftwood, carving deep so it won't fade. If you find it, leave. Burn the wood. Forget the name Redwater. And if the sea starts to sing, don't answer. Don't stare. Don't breathe. Story number 4. The sand was darker than we expected. Coarse, black like volcanic ash. Even though the maps said this coastline had no such history. The beach was called Gulls Hollow, but there were no gulls, no birds, no tracks, just a long crescent of silence, water flat as glass, and a sun that felt just a little too distant. We were 5. Me, Dax, Cora, Luis, and Marie. College friends, all looking to unplug. No reception, no crowds, just isolation and salt air. Dax had found it in an old sailor's book left behind at a thrift shop. Scribbled next to the map was a warning in faded ink. No one walks the shore at low tide. Not unless they wish to drown on dry land. We laughed it off, of course. Marie even posted a photo with the caption, challenging the curse. But even as the fire cracked and music played from our little solar speaker, I felt it, that pull. Like gravity had changed direction. The first night was uneventful. We drank, roasted marshmallows, told stories. At midnight, the tide was still out, far enough that you could walk for nearly 100 feet before touching water. Cora wanted to explore. Luis said no. Something about the air felt wrong. Heavy. Then we heard it. The bells. Far away. Like a ship's warning bell, muffled and echoing. But there was no ship. Just empty horizon and that low, ringing moan of rusted metal swinging in the distance. Cora and Marie went toward it, laughing. Vanished into the fog that rolled in fast. Too fast. They didn't come back. Not that night. Not the next day. We searched the entire shoreline, called out, screamed their names. No footprints. No screams. Just that bell, always somewhere just out of reach. We climbed the dunes and found nothing but dry grass and wind-carved rock. We should have left. But the car battery was dead. The radio was static. The GPS said no position found. Dax and Luis argued. Luis wanted to hike out. Dax insisted the girls would come back. He refused to abandon them. That night, the tide went out farther than before. The beach grew, tripled in size, and we saw shapes in the sand. Not rocks, not shells, buildings, sunken, ruined, cracked open like corpses, old stone foundations, barnacled walls, doorways leading into the dark. A town, under the sea, revealed by the tide, and in the center the bell tower, still standing, still ringing. Luis said he saw Cora through one of the stone arches. She was naked, her skin slick, shimmering like a seal's hide. He ran to her. Dax and I followed. As we stepped into the ruins, the air got colder. Salty. Wrong. We called Luis. He didn't answer. Then we heard a gurgle, and something wet dragging across stone. Dax went right. I went left. I never saw Dax again. But I heard him. He screamed my name once. Then nothing. I ran, tripped over a crack in the stone and fell face first into water that hadn't been there seconds before. I crawled out, choking, and saw it. Cora, floating above the broken church. Her eyes were gone. Her mouth was full of seaweed. She opened her arms and whispered, "Join us. The tide is still out." I ran until I saw the tents. They were soaked. Even though the beach was dry, I stayed awake until dawn. But the sun never came. Only fog, only bells, only footprints circling my tent. Small, barefoot, dozens of them. The next day, if it was a day, I packed and left. I hiked until I found a ranger station. Banged on the door until my fists bled. The ranger stared at me, pale, quiet. "You said Gull's Hollow?" he asked. "That beach has been closed since the 60s. "Why?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just showed me a newspaper clipping from a dusty folder. Tide reveals sunken colonial village. 3 missing. Locals say town was cursed. I recognized the bell tower in the photo. I recognized Cora's face. And beneath the article, written in the same faded ink as in the sailor's book, "They drown where there is no sea. They return when the tide forgets to rise." Sometimes late at night I still hear the bell. Always far away. Always swinging in dead air. I haven't slept since. Because every time I close my eyes, I feel the tide going out again. And I know they're waiting beneath the sand.